Chief Reverend saying that I've come back, and he says he'll take a rest. When I came back, he says today is Friday. So I got the hint from him. And my mind is empty. I do not know what to talk. So I told him I come to ask you what you want to know. Is there anything that you wish to know that I know? If you wish to know something which I do not know, then I do not know. Do you want to know something? No? Yes? Anything? He's asking that question about void. What is the void? It is a very big subject because it is what you will experience at the end of your practice, at the end of your development of mind. You experience the void. But this word void, or sunyata, have also become a very big philosophy in Buddhism, especially in the Mahayana school. When the Buddha spoke of void, as we understand it in the Pali text, the void is understood in terms of the characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta. How is this void experienced? When you have already developed your mind to that extent that you are able to keep your mind in perfect mindfulness. Perfect mindfulness, and you have developed your insight and have that ability to see every phenomena, mental, physical phenomena. They are subject to rise and fall, rising and falling. That is what anicca is. Now if you so train your mind to dwell in mindfulness through the 6 doors, the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. Even while you are sitting here, you can empty your mind. But whether you will arrive at the real void or not, it really depends whether you have developed your mind to that level. You can get into, there are different degrees of void. The highest, the ultimate void is when you are able to see all the 6 bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind, and how they function. And that whatever phenomena, whatever stimulus, sense objects that comes in contact with these 6 bases, you see them, how they condition consciousness to arise. Consciousness through the eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. The sound, the object that you see, that visual object which comes into contact with your eye conditions the eye consciousness and conditions a thought. That is how you see. You don't only see with your physical eye. Whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever you smell, through these 6 bases, they are interpreted to your mind. Mental factors convert and give the idea in your mind so that you have idea, you have a mental image built up in your mind. But all those mental images, the thoughts that are generated, they don't last more than a split moment. Within the split moment, in one moment, there is the rising and falling. That is change, that is anicca. So if the mind, if you have already trained your mind to dwell in complete mindfulness, and there is complete equanimity, that means to say your mind dwell in the totally in the present, in the here and now. It is only in the here and now, it's only in the present that you will be able to see and be able to realize what change and impermanence is about. The past is gone. You can only think of the past that has happened. The future not yet come. What is the present? Is there such thing as present? When I say now, this is the present, it's gone. It's gone. So what is the present? The present, we use this word, we use this symbol, present, to mean, to imply the past merging into future. The past merging into future. That past merging into future, that split moment is the change, right? Is change. That is how the past merge with future. There is no one moment, there is no two moments in that, there's just one moment. Past merging in the future. That is how the Buddha defined anicca, udaya bhaya, udaya vaya. Rising, falling. So when you see, when the mind can see this, when you train your mind to observe rising and falling to that extent, what happens is this. Soon as you see rising, falling, your mind cuts off. There is no more creation of thoughts. There is no more thinking. There is no more creation of thoughts. See, just goes on. You see something, maybe if you are meditating, you are with closed eyes, you are able still to see brightness or darkness or any images, mental images in your mental screen. That also is a phenomena of sight. If you hear some sound, that is also a thought, because that's how the sound, when the sound vibration rise, it has gone. You know it through your thoughts. If you smell something, that's also a thought. And if you can see that all these thoughts, they rise and fall within split moment, your mind cut off that. And when you learn how to cut off at that point of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. Then you go one more level. Now, take for an instance, you watch any sensations, there's a feeling, it rises and falls, right? Rising and falling. Then the feeling goes away. Then there is your consciousness. Consciousness. That you are conscious of that feeling. It is this consciousness that makes you become aware of this rising and falling. Right? If you can see that this consciousness is also anicca, rising and falling, then at that moment it cuts off. You cut off that consciousness. What is that consciousness? It's that consciousness that links your 6 bases with the external sense bases, with your 6 internal bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and the mind, and with the external sense base, sense objects. It is that consciousness that conditions contact, where there is an eye object coming into contact with your eye base, then eye consciousness arises, right? And that eye consciousness that arises is also changing, anicca. When at that level you can see that anicca, that consciousness now stops the, and that is how you stop. You totally cut off these 6 bases. Your mind dwells in the void. Your mind enters the void. When you enter the void, you don't know. It's like going to sleep. And in the void, when you are up, you experience anicca, dukkha, anatta in one. Experience nothing. Because you have totally cut off the 6 bases. You cannot hear. No more seeing, no more smelling, no more tasting, no more touching, no more this. The only thing is that you have awareness of the void. You are aware of the void. And this void is not a static one. It's a developing void. And the void that develops, and when you enter the void, then you realize that Nibbanic bliss. The Buddha says, Nibbanam paramam sunyam. Nibbana is the highest emptiness, void. But you should not understand that this void is nothing. Right? This void is when you are able to cut off your senses. And that is why you see in the Paticca Samuppada, you find when viññāna paccaya sankhara. Viññāna means consciousness. When consciousness arises, sankhara, thoughts arise. When thoughts arise, sankhara paccaya nama rupa. Viññāna paccaya nama rupa. That viññāna, consciousness, conditions nama rupa, mind, body. Right? Because without consciousness, there is no mind, no body. Right? No nama rupa. If you have no, the consciousness does not arise, you have no concept of the mind and body. If there is no mind and body, then there is no 6 bases. If there is no 6 bases, there is no contact. If you have no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, you have no contact with the external world. Without contact, where there is no contact, there is no feeling. That is why in the void you don't have any feeling. Where there is no feeling, there is no clinging, means no attachment. There is no becoming, there is no birth, there is no old age, no sickness, no death. These voids actually cuts off the tendencies of the consciousness, and the tendency of your consciousness to create thoughts in your mind. And it only lasts a few moments. You cannot stay in the void all the time. As long as you have eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and the mind, as long as you are living, you cannot remain in the void all the time. Because your eye, you are still performing activities. But the fact that you have attained to that state of void, that you are able to cut off, that your mind already knows how to cut off. You can at any time cut off. Any thoughts that arises, you can cut off like that. Your mind will just remain silent. Void. You see? In the void, there is no more experience of rising. It's after you experience rising and falling, everything rising and falling, then only you reach the void. That is why the void is experienced, the real void, the ultimate void, is experienced after the upekkha, equanimity. There are 7 factors of enlightenment. The first factor of enlightenment is sati, mindfulness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Then there is dhamma vijaya, or investigation into Dhamma. Investigation into Dhamma. I'll explain that what it is. Then there is virya, effort, piti, rapture, passaddhi, tranquility, samadhi, concentration, and upekkha, equanimity. That equanimous mind, at that state there is no more. You cannot see any more what you call, no more desire, no more aversion. Your mind is just steady, upekkha. But that state of upekkha is also impermanent. It's when you dwell on that state of upekkha, when your mind dwell on it, and then you're able to see, you're able to realize that that equanimous state of mind is also impermanent. Then you get into the void. You see? But the Buddha, in different suttas, explain the void in there are different degrees of void. The ultimate point is that where the mind learns where the mind has attained to that level of cutting off consciousness. Then the real void, of course, you are able to remain totally in void after death. Those who have developed that void, right, the Buddha or Arahats who have entered the void, realize the Nibbanic bliss. They cannot remain, as long as they have those 5 and 6 bases, they cannot remain in the void all the time. That is why the Buddha usually gets into the void, gets into experiences Nibbanic bliss for a certain period, certain time of the day. 1 or 2 hours experience in the morning, experience that Nibbanic bliss. And then time of death, when the body disintegrates, then the mind totally enters the void. Then there is no more. There is no more mind and body. There is no more what you call feeling. There is no more craving, no more attachment, no more birth, no more old age, sickness, death. That is the end, we will say, of that. Now, the void is also explained that to a lesser degree and a more temporary void you experience when you get into absorption. When your mind gets into absorption, total absorption, your mind, there's no thoughts in the mind. And your mind, no more thoughts, no more. Sometimes there's no more feeling, you cannot feel anymore. Then in the fourth, you experience that. In the fourth jhana, you don't experience your body anymore. No more feeling of the body anymore. Your mind has come out of the body. And you experience that void. The length of time, it depends. If you're so determined to spend certain time, your mind stays there for a certain period of time. After that, you come out again. But that state of mind is not what you call, it is a conditioned state. It is a conditioned state of mind. You have not reached to the final void yet. When you reach to the final void, it means that you have totally cut off that habit of thinking and rethinking. The habit of the consciousness creating thoughts after thinking, that habit has been totally cut off. So you are able to think. As soon as you think, your mind is empty. You are able to plan things. After that, you are able to, you have full control of your thoughts already. Like that. You see? Yes, I say this is your experience in the highest level. Now let us go to the first level first. Yes. No. You only experience this through vipassana. That's right. First, it makes you very alert, and then after that, cuts you off. Nothing. Step by step, step by step. Understand? Go on practicing until you come to the end, and then you will know what it is about. The step-by-step practice on the 7 factors of enlightenment. If it is this enlightenment or the putting an end to craving, attachment, if that is what you aim for, and that is what a real Buddhist should aim for, because that's what the Buddha taught. All the teachings, everything the Buddha taught is to pave the way for one to overcome suffering, to be in a blissful state all the time. How to be in this blissful state all the time? It is by cutting off attachment, craving. How to cut off this attachment and craving? The first step, the first factor of enlightenment is the practice of mindfulness, sati. What is this sati? Mindfulness. Mindfulness on your body, mindfulness on feelings, mindfulness on your state of mind, and mindfulness on the development of Dhamma, within you. These are the four foundations of mindfulness. How do you develop mindfulness on your body? There are 6 aspects, 6 ways by which you develop mindfulness on your body. There is the breath of your body, breathing in and breathing out. Because this is the most important aspect, most important thing within this body, the wind element in and out, without which this body, you cannot maintain this body for long. Without food, you can maintain the body also for some days. Without water, still you can live for some days. But without breathing in and out, you cannot maintain. So that is why mindfulness on breathing in and breathing out. Develop your mindfulness on breathing in and breathing out. All the ancient, whether it be in India, in China or other places, all the ancient arts of maintaining health involves the art of breathing in and out. Whether it be Tai Chi, Qigong, Yoga, all, the emphasis is to start with, observe the breath. You see? When you observe, after that you observe the second aspect of mindfulness in the body is the posture of your body. There are 4 main postures: sitting, standing, moving posture, and lying down. If you develop your mindfulness on these 4 postures, you will have good health, strong body. You won't suffer from the kind of slip disc and backache, spine problem and all that. All those problems have a reason because of bad posture, body posture. Yes. No. Lying down, of course, the Buddha lie down using the lying posture. Right? You don't have to lie down in lying posture, whether you lie down upwards or you lie down in anything, but just be mindful lying down posture. You see? Your mindfulness, how do you develop your mindfulness? When you sit, you are mindful. You are sitting. Your mindfulness of your posture. When you develop this mindfulness, then you begin to see some tension develop in certain parts of your body, right? And when that tension develops, your body will naturally move. With your mindfulness, naturally move to a position where there is less tension. Until when you develop perfect mindfulness, your body just comes to a position where it is in total, what do you call, totally relaxed. I see. And mindfulness on the bodily activities, clearly comprehending bodily activities. That means, apart from the 4 postures, whatever activities you do with the body, whether you are stretching your hand, bending down, looking forward, looking sideways, answering the call of nature, eating, drinking, all these activities, one dwells in mindfulness. So you won't get stuck, fishbone, it won't stick in there. And you can avoid a lot of all the various kinds of accidents in the body when you dwell in mindfulness, clearly comprehending your body activities. Then mindfulness on the 32 parts of the body, on the 4 bodily elements first. 4 bodily elements. What are the 4 bodily elements? The elements of earth element, water element, fire element, wind element. These are how the ancient science in India have explained or used these symbols to explain those physical phenomena that we experience. The earth element represents solidity, hardness and softness. Right? The water element represents the fluidity, the cohesive property, the stickiness that you experience. Fire element is the heat within you. And wind element is the vibrational, the movement that you experience. That's caused by the wind element. These are the four elements that you experience. If you develop your mindfulness on these four elements, you don't have aversion. You reduce your aversion and craving. You can cut off your aversion and craving. What happens when you sit down here for a little while, and if the fan stops blowing, you feel hot. You feel heated up, right? Once you feel heated up, you feel very uncomfortable. Why? Lack of mindfulness. If you feel heat, you just observe this is just heat element. Your mind don't get upset. Don't react to it. If you start sweating, right? Then you react. You start wiping and you start doing all sorts of things. If you develop your mindfulness in the body, it's just water element that is coming out of your body, and no problem. You will be able to remain still there. Right? So this is how you develop mindfulness on these four elements. Then again, the manifestation of these four elements into the 32 parts of the body. In India, the medical science in India analyzed the body into 32 parts, into 20 solid parts and 12 liquid parts. The contemplation or the development of mindfulness on these 32 parts of the body, from the hair of the head, the hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, inside your skin, underneath the skin, flesh, bones, all the sinews, ligaments, in the bone marrow, and all the organs of the body, and all the other liquid parts. When you analyze them one by one and contemplate the nature of these different parts of the body, the moment you remove your hair, put it in front of you, you will see that it's no longer beautiful. You realize that? When you go back home, before you sleep, you're bound to comb your hair. Or when you get up, you comb your hair. Right? And when you comb your hair, you're bound to have a few strands. Some a little bit more, some a bit less, right? What do you do with those strands of hair? You say, very nice, I will keep it with me. And if these strands happen to fall down on the floor, you just sweep it aside. You throw it away, right? If these strands of hair so happen to fall in your food, you feel it very dirty, right? So this is what your hair is about. If you start contemplating this is how you'll be able to develop mindfulness on these parts of the body, and how you'll be able to, your mind become aware, and your mind develop the wisdom to realize the true nature of your body, how the mind will be able to separate from the body. The actual practice of this, when people actually spend some time analyzing these 32 parts of the body, later they report, when they sit down quietly, they report as if the mind looking at the body and this body is not theirs. Like the mind looking at the body, like that. This is what? The mind separating from the body. And as they observe these parts of the body, develop the mindfulness to see how hair grow and fall down. Right? All these other parts, all the other parts, the hair, the body also grow and fall down. You cannot control them. Your nails, you grow, it doesn't fall, but you have to cut and throw them away. Right? Your teeth also grow and one day have to fall down and decay and fall down. Right? The skin also will grow and it has to, you don't shed the skin like a snake, but when you rub it, you find that, it just peels off. Yes. That is the nature of this body. And when you dwell in these things, you'll be able to see how everything in the body just changing, decomposing. Then your mind, seeing this unsatisfactory, this impermanent nature of the body and unsatisfactoriness, that mind will be able to become detached from the body. Right? It is only in the detachment of this, when your mind detached from this body, that you will be able to liberate your mind. Liberation is something that how your mind becomes detached. First with the body, later with your own mind, with your own thoughts and ideas and concepts in your mind. That also to give up, you see. So, the 32 parts of the body, and then if these different aspects of mindfulness in the body, step by step, some people can see certain things clearer. If the minds are sharp, they can see the 4 elements very clear. Otherwise, 32 parts of the body. If these 32 parts of the body, they cannot see this nature of the body which is not beautiful, smelly, dirty, constantly decaying. Then there's another contemplation called the 9 sanitary contemplation, where you contemplate the body a few days late, blue, swollen, and then after that what happens to it after a few days, after a few weeks. You see, water starts to ooze off, all the liquid starts to ooze off, and then bloated up and broken, and the worms and other things come. Animals comes and feed it if there's there. You see, until you're left with only these few, what you call flesh, just attached to the bones. Then that also dry up. The blood also dry up, becomes only bones, and even bones also, what you call, disintegrate and become heaps of dust. And then the wind blows away, empty. That's what you are. If you can contemplate like that, your mind. Now develop. I'm sure you all have a very good skill. Many of you have the skills of imagination, visualization. Now it's just how you use your visualization, how you use your imagination. Go and imagine this body going down like that. This is how. If you don't want to come back again, the mind and the body is so attached. The mind is so attached to this body. That is why you come back again and again. Yes, mind is so attached to the body, cannot give up. The only thing is that now that you have a body, you look at your body, and you look at other body, and then you look at your body, you compare and you say, that body is better. And you cling on to that body. And you build up that concept of the body, that shape, that size, and this and that. Just before you die, you also think that body. And that thought molds you because of your clinging. That clinging, it comes to, because of that craving force attracts all the physical elements and molds you to that shape. You see? Yes. All the shape, that is why the molding part, of course you don't immediately bond like that, but the impressions are so set that immediately when conception takes place, within that one cell, 2 cell or 3 cell, all the code is there. The genetic code, how the shape is going to look like, all is there already, imprinted in there, all imprinted there already. Whether it's going to have a doggy nose or what, it all depends. Yes. So it really depends. Some people cling on, not purposely, because they have so many dogs at home, and that just before the last breath they think of this dog, that nobody feeding his dog, you see, and that dog appear in the face. You see, this is how the thing molds you to that. You see. Body is just body, just elements, body. Where is it? So if you train your mind, your mindfulness to see the nature of the body, you can get rid of the delusion of this body. Right? Then it's a very great benefit to you. Why? Because if something happens to your body, which definitely will happen one day, with old age, sickness, and eventually the body have to be separated, they say. If you have learned, if you start now, while you are still healthy, of course, not a single of you is totally healthy. There will be a little bit here and there problems here and there, but you still maintain, the general health is quite okay, right? Use this now to develop your mind, to understand this body, so that your mind can detach a little bit. So that when the time comes, when the body starts to give problem, and start rotting and start, building all kinds of cells and tumors and this and that, your mind knows this body is of this nature. If you have to throw it away. Finish. Your mind don't cling on to it. Right? And if the body becomes such a big burden for you to carry, your mind is ready to let go of it. Just let go of it. That's what you call, death. A very temporary phenomena, unless you have already totally cut off. Stop the craving and attachment for any bodies. Then you no longer come back again. Otherwise, you just throw off that, that body. But people also find it so difficult to throw off that body which has become so delicate and so frail and so burdensome. Why is it? People are attached to that body because the mind is not trained to see the nature of the body. That is why the first foundation of mindfulness and the first factor of enlightenment is to learn what this body is about. Then the mind becomes detached. Now when you develop your mindfulness on the body, what happens is, naturally when you turn your attention to watch your body, you will be able to become more sensitive to your feelings, sensation. That is why when you close your eyes and watch your breath, you immediately become aware of whatever sensation that arises, whatever feeling that arises. Right? So, when you watch the feeling, and see how the feeling rise and go, rise and fall, until no more feeling. Then your mind becomes more sensitive to your thoughts, to the states of your mind. Any thoughts that arises in your mind becomes sharp, alert, you're able to observe them. That's what you call mindfulness using the mind, mindfulness in the mind. You see? You be able to see the thoughts, know thoughts arising in your mind, arising, gone, arise, gone, like that. then, after you develop that, then when you go on developing your mind, the thoughts becomes less and less, less and less. Then no more thoughts in your mind. Then the next stage is you dwell in the Dhamma. What Dhamma? There's a development of Dhamma that has taken place within you. And what are those mental hindrances? Hindrance with regards to sensual desire. Hindrance with regards to anger, aversion. The hindrance with regards to sloth and torpor of the mind. Hindrance with regards to restless mind, many thoughts, worries. And the hindrance with regards to doubts in your mind. You observe your state of mind, whether there are these mental hindrances or not. As long as there are these mental hindrances, your mind is still. You cannot get into the right concentration. As long as these hindrances are there, your mind cannot reach that level of concentration which the Buddha says right concentration. So, in the Dhamma, in contemplation of the Dhamma, the development of Dhamma within us, we first analyze these 5 mental hindrances. Then after that, we must know how these hindrances arise and how they ceases and how to overcome it. Then we observe the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates of the body, of this being. What are these 5 aggregates? We analyze the 5 aggregates. The aggregate of the physical aggregate, the aggregate of form, rupa. Then the aggregate of feeling, vedana. The aggregate of perception, sanya, sanyakanda. The aggregate of mental formation, sankhara. And the aggregate of vijnana. How do you observe this? Now you have watched when you have developed the mindfulness on the body and feelings. Now you just observe. The aggregate of form is impermanent. Body, impermanent. Feeling, impermanent. Rise or fall. Right? Then you observe your perception, your ability to cognize, remember things also change. The thoughts, ideas in your mind change. Consciousness arise and gone. You see anicca, change in that. You contemplate these 5 aggregates. Then the 6 bases. Whilst contemplating these 5 aggregates, you should know how these 5 aggregates arise. How do the 5 aggregates arise? If we analyze this whole body and mind, we analyze them into 5 aggregates. That's what the being is about. And how does these 5 aggregates arise? It arises through your 6 bases: eye, ear, nose, tongue, the body and the mind. Whatever you see, if you see some visual object, that visual object comes into contact with your eye consciousness, you become consciousness of that thing, and a thought arises in your mind. Now, that thought arises. That thought has been created or generated through what? There are mental factors in the mind. There are certain mental factors, cetasika, in the mind that generates the thought. There are 5. mental factors. There is the factor of contact, passa. And that is why when the object comes in contact with the eye and consciousness arises, then there is contact. Contact, mental factor, contact arises. Soon as this mental factor, contact arises, there's another mental factor, feeling. Then the mental factor of perception, mental factor of volition, the act, and mental factor of attention, manasikara. These are the 5 mental factors. These 5 mental factors serves to functions in a manner of converting that physical object which you see and giving rise in the mind the impression of the aggregates of form, rupa, the aggregates of feeling, the aggregates of perception, the aggregates of mental formations, and the aggregate of consciousness. That is what the next thing you do when you contemplate is you contemplate the 6 bases: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And then you begin to see how the relation of the 5 aggregates and the 6 bases, how the 5 aggregates arise through the 6 bases in the thought. Every thought that you generate, there are the 5 aggregates. Then that is why when after you develop this, then you go on to develop the 4 Noble Truths, mindful of the 4 Noble Truths. What is the 4 Noble Truths? The 4 Noble Truths speaks about dukkha, suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the path which leads to the end of suffering. What is suffering? Of course, many of you have heard suffering, birth, old age, sickness, death, being in company of loved ones and have to separate from them, being in those people with people and conditions which you don't like but you cannot get away from it, expecting something you don't get it. These are all unsatisfactory states. But the more profound meaning of dukkha, and this is very important, if one wishes to understand what dukkha is really about, the Buddha summarizes and says, Sankitena Panchupadana Kanda Dukkha. The 5 grasping aggregates are dukkha in themselves. In other words, when you contemplate on dukkha, you must realize, you must be aware and know that the 5 grasping aggregates, the 5 aggregates that you grasp onto, that you cling onto, as long as there is clinging to these 5 aggregates, there is dukkha. That is dukkha. And what is the cause of dukkha? The cause is the craving, is that clinging on to the 5 aggregates. Right? Because the 5 aggregates arise and go away. As soon as the thought arises, 5 aggregates arises. As the thought ceases, the 5 aggregates ceases. But the mind, which is deluded, as long as there is avidya, as long as there is ignorance, delusion in the mind thinks of the 5 aggregates as something real and clings onto it and starts. When you cling onto it, then you produce more and more thoughts. You think about it again and again, again and again, again and again, and you make it very real. That is how you are born. It is by thinking of this again and again, again and again, this attachment conditions that becoming process, and that becoming process there is the production of the form, the image which you have clung onto, the mold that you have clung onto. That's how a being is born. It starts off, how this form arises from your mind. So, this is how, when you develop your mindfulness on the 5 aggregates, the 6 bases, and then the 4 noble truths. What the 4 noble truths are, you should know them. Dukkha, Samudaya, Nirodha, Magga. You know what dukkha is about. And the real meaning, the more profound meaning of dukkha, the grasping of the 5 aggregates. Then the cause of dukkha, the clinging, craving, is the cause. Then Nirodha, the end of dukkha, when there is no craving, when there is no attachment. Then the path, the way to end that craving. How? By the development of mindfulness. You see? By developing your mindfulness and how you're able to silence your mind and control, have full awareness and control of your thoughts, that this no more random thoughts in your mind, then you can control your craving. That's the way out of suffering. Yes. Then after that, there's another Dhamma to contemplate the 7 factors of enlightenment. So you go back to 7 factors of enlightenment. Now the beauty of this, the 7 factors of enlightenment is this. You have first started with mindfulness on the body, or what you call sati. The first foundation of mindfulness is a foundation of mindfulness. And you have gone on to develop the 4th foundation of mindfulness, which is mindfulness on the Dhamma, the development of Dhamma within you. And then you go, and you have contemplated on the 5 mental hindrances, 5 aggregates, 6 bases, 4 noble truths, and 7 factors of enlightenment. Then this takes you to the 2nd factor of enlightenment. What is the 2nd factor of enlightenment? Dhamma Vijaya. Dhamma Vijaya is the investigation of Dhamma. What investigation? What Dhamma? It is the Dhamma with regards to mind and body. And what is this mind and body? Nama Rupa. It is the 5 aggregates. Then you come back again to the 5 aggregates and you start analyzing. At this stage, you are scrutinizing. You are required to develop this 2nd factor of enlightenment of scrutinizing the mind and body, the 5 aggregates. How these 5 aggregates arise? So what you do is you dwell in mindfulness, total mindfulness. Your mind, you silence your mind, and then any thoughts that arises, you analyze your thoughts, and you see the thoughts have the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates rise and fall. Anything that you see, what happens? When you see something, comes into contact with your eye base, the retina of the eye. You become conscious of the thing. Then a thought arises. Right? Now what is this? This is only a series of cause and effect. If you are able to watch this carefully, what is it that sees? Is there a person seeing the thing? There is no person that is seeing. There is only a series of cause and effect that is taking place. And when the mind, this is how you analyze. You analyze the mind and body and see how everything that arises, a sound arises, you hear the sound. The thought, the sound is a thought, arises. And that sound, depending whether good sound or bad sound, that's how it gives rise to feeling. Right? You have certain, when you hear some sound, you are aware, oh, this motorbike sound, and it's over. And then you get a little bit of aversion over it. Right? So you see there is a sound, there's a physical aspect, there's a rupa, there is the feeling, there is your perception, you know what sound it is, you see, and the mental activities that takes place in your mind, and consciousness. You are conscious, there's consciousness in working in that. These 5 aggregates are there in your thoughts, any thought that arises. And as soon as it arises, it's gone. Arises and it falls off. But what happens is that your mind, as long as you don't have the perfect mindfulness, your mind starts to think about the sound. That person who rides the motorcycle and to make that noise is already gone. But you are still thinking. You are still thinking, where does he stay? Next time I'll report to the police and so on. Now, these are what you call thoughts. You are thinking and rethinking of it. And you see? It's not, those aggregates have arisen and gone at that moment. Within a split moment, it has risen and gone. That's the reality. That is how you develop the mindfulness of what you call Dhamma. Analyze mind and body and see how they rise and fall. You analyze the 5 aggregates arising at the 6 bases, how it rises and falls. You see. And when you do these things, then the 3rd factor of enlightenment, as this 2nd factor of arises in you, then energy, your mental energy arises, virya, you feel that energy. Mental energy rising up. You have a strong mental energy within you. As soon as that mental energy begins to rise, that mental energy, that virya, conditions piti to arise, rapturous feeling. You have a total feeling of satisfaction in you. And then your body becomes light, pasati, becomes light because there's full tranquility and you feel like floating, very bright and floating like that, pasati. And as that mind develops upwards, that's where you develop the samadhi. This samadhi in the 7 factors of enlightenment is not the samatha samadhi, it is the vipassana samadhi. It is the concentrated insight that develops upwards in the vertical direction and culminates in upekkha, equanimity, where you dwell, perfect balance of mind, where any sound, anything that arises, you are not disturbed in it. Your mind not disturbed by anything. These are the 7 factors of enlightenment which you have developed. These factors of enlightenment leads you to the liberation and the attainment of Nibbana. It is when you dwell in upekkha, when your mind dwell in this upekkha, in equanimity, that you begin to see that even this state of equanimous mind is a state of your mind which is not satisfactory. It's subject to change. And that is how, when you begin to see, when you see how upekkha, anicca, that state of mind, upekkha, also change, then the mind gets into the void. Because what? In that upekkha state is so clear that you be able to see consciousness. What this consciousness is about. Because any thoughts, because your mind is so steady that any sound, anything that you see, even the brightness that you see in your mind, that brightness, the fact that you see that brightness, you see the light, that is a thought. Because you are conscious of it. When you are aware that consciousness is also changing, that's how you cut off that consciousness. When you cut off the consciousness, in other words, that consciousness which performs the function of creating thoughts in your mind. Because it is the I consciousness that's responsible. Whatever you see eye consciousness arises and creates a thought in your mind. Whatever you hear, ear consciousness arises, creates a thought, and then you see. Right? So when the mind begins to see the consciousness also change, anicca, then you cut off your 6 bases. Where there is no consciousness. Now this is not death. We are not talking, but there is still awareness. Right? There is still awareness. You see? Where there is no this vijnana, when vijnana stops this creating, because vijnana is the magician. The Buddha compares this vijnana as magician that tricks us. When we stop vijnana paccaya nama rupa, then there is no more formation of that aggregates in the mind. Understand? Then there is no more clinging, no more formation of the aggregates, no more 6 bases, you're cut off, no more contact. You are living. It is only, actually, it is in this state, while living, that you are able to experience a total cutting off of these things. You see? You come back again to the Paticca Samuppada, apply the Paticca Samuppada, which clearly explains how suffering arises and how suffering ceases. It says that when vijnana paccaya nama rupa, when vijnana arises, vijnana conditions mind and body to arise. Namarupa paccaya salayatana. The 6 bases. Where there is mind and body, there are 6 bases. Where there are 6 bases, there is contact, passa. Where there is contact, there is feeling. Where there is feeling, there is craving. Where there is craving, there is attachment. Where there is attachment, there is becoming. Where there is becoming, there is birth. Where there is birth, there is old age, sickness, death, so on. So when you stop there, yes, this is what mindfulness leads to. First factor of mindfulness leads you on to that final upekkha, equanimity. And when you mindfulness of that, right up to that state, you're mindful of that state of upekkha, equanimity, which is also subject to change, that takes you on to the void, leads you to the void, the realization of void. That's the experience, the Nibbana place. You see? Only a short time. Some people can dwell it for a few minutes. But as soon as they come out of it, the senses are functioning again. But you feel very fresh. You see? You feel very fresh. You are not dead. But at that moment, you do not know anything. You're only aware. There is awareness of the void. There's awareness of the void. You see? That is why we have to differentiate between, very often we use very loose words and says consciousness and awareness. Awareness is one thing. The consciousness, we talk about the consciousness, we talk about eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, and the 6 kinds of consciousness we name them, right? And we can become aware of this consciousness also, eye consciousness that arises, right? So that is, it is that awareness that keeps you still alive. You see? So these are the 7 factors of enlightenment. You develop that. Little by little, you start with mindfulness in the body. Whatever you do, you develop your mindfulness. You see? Whatever feeling you observe, you be mindful of that. You see? And that's why the Buddha has shown a path, a very clear path. Starting just mindfulness on the body, on your breath, breathing in, breathing out. If you are able to watch your breath in and out, and keep your attention there, you learn how to cut off the thoughts. Your mind becomes concentrated. Your your mind begins to develop. When your mind is concentrated, then development takes place. When the development takes place, then you train your mind to become absorbed, to get into absorption. When your mind gets absorbed in that object of meditation, at that moment of absorption, you control and you overcome those 5 mental hindrances. You overcome at that moment the length of time that your mind is in absorption, at least the first absorption, then you have that ability to control sensual desire, anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness, remorse, and doubts. That's what we call then the purification process takes place, right? Your mind becomes more and more purified, you see. When you develop your mind to the first, the second, the third, the fourth absorption, in these 4 absorptions the Buddha explains as right concentration. Then you come out of your absorption and analyze this body, all your bodily activities, and you see what activities you perform. This is something that you don't need very great concentration to do within your own, what you call normal consciousness, but your mind must be steady. Then you can see it clearly. Now, when a feeling arises in you and your body moves, do you think that there is a person, there's something that causes you to move? You hear something and you become aware of the sound. Do you think that there is a person that is hearing in you? You ask yourself. The training is, when you develop your mind, there is a training where you live in absolute mindfulness. After you have make your mind steady, then you watch carefully. Any feeling that arises, that feeling conditions a thought. If it's a painful feeling, conditions a thought, and then your body reacts. That feeling, that thought is a mental aspect, mental process. The physical, the reaction of your body, that's the physical part, right? The sound that you hear, that's a physical phenomena. It's a vibration, it's sound vibrations, it's physical. But your hearing, your ability to become conscious of it, that's your mental part, that's your mind. Your mind, the knowing part, that's your mind. When you see something, you see form, you see images, you see form before you. That's the physical part. You look at the Buddha image, that's physical, right? But the thought that arises in your mind and the feeling that you get when you see the Buddha, you get good feeling. They are your mental part. That's the mental aspect, right? So when you keep on analyzing and dwell in that, your mind, you will soon learn. You teach your mind to see that all these activities that you are performing, there is only a mind, body performing this. There's mental activity and a physical activity. Then you develop this knowledge. That is what you call Nama Rupa Paricheda Jnana. You're able to distinguish the mind and the body. And there's nothing else. When you're able to see this mind and body, you'll be able to see that mind condition, how the mind condition your body. Now you are still listening to me. The moment the thought arises to you that I have to go now. When the thought arises, then your body reacts. And then you move, you go. Right? Who is doing that for you? Is there somebody that is pushing you, dragging you to go? No. Even your own mother, even your own husband, wife, children cannot push you. If your mind, you see, if you so decide to stay, you just stay. You see? Right? But the moment your mind gives the order, enough, we must go. Now, your body follows. What is that? That's a mind, the thought, the cause, the intention to go, that's a cause, and your body movement, that's the effect. It's a cause and effect acting on you, right? The very fact that you are sitting now, there's also a phenomenon of cause and effect. What you are hearing now, there's also cause and effect. Because the sound vibration there, you are conscious of it. This sound vibration is the cause. Your hearing of it is the effect. By hearing it, you start to have thoughts in your mind. You start to remember what you have heard also. Then, how that consciousness becomes a cause to another effect, the thought becomes a cause to another thought, and that thought becomes a cause to your speech and action. Nothing but cause and effect, cause and effect. When there's this cause and effect, when you realize this cause and effect, you will see cause arise and fall. As soon as the cause arises, the effect arises. As soon as the cause ceases, the effect ceases. Then you begin to see rising and falling. You'll be able to observe the rising, falling phenomena and be able to experience change, anicca. And at that stage, you will be able to cut off that concept, the view that you have in your mind that there is a being, there is a person that is doing the thing. That's what you call sakkaya ditthi. You can break this view. And once you have that wisdom of breaking this view, and that it leads on to, you break the doubts, you have absolutely no doubts now of what the Buddha taught as to how to get into calmness and peace. And then your total faith, confidence in the Buddha, in this path, that you see, it involves no rites, no rituals whatsoever. You have not gone round 3 times, you have not bowed down 100,000 times, but your mind is peaceful. You have come to this state, then that is how your mind cut off what you call the fetter of rites and rituals, clinging to rites and rituals. These rites and rituals that we all practice, they have been all from various traditions and customs, other religious rites and rituals that comes in and binds us. The real message of the Buddha, the real path which the Buddha showed, is a path of purity of mind, how to purify the mind, how to develop and purify and release the mind, liberation of the mind. But over the course of time, all kinds of rites, rituals and ceremonies have come in. And you are so afraid of certain things that you must do this way, if you don't do this way, you find fear, and who's going to punish you? And you get caught up with all these things. You see, that's what you call the fetter that binds you to samsara. The moment you break this fetter through your practice, through what you realize in the development of your mind, you break this fetter. These 3 fetters you break: sakkaya ditthi, vicikicca, silapata paramasa. That is to say, you now have faith that you no more have that idea that there is a being, there's a person that is doing the work for you, and that now you have a full faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. What the Buddha taught, this is the path. Then you break the fetter of rites and rituals and ceremonies. Of course, you still perform those ceremonies. You can still take part in the ceremonies, but you know very clearly you don't need it. That these ceremonies does not lead, not necessary for enlightenment. Understand? But necessary to help some people because they like it. Otherwise, they don't come to temple. And it's because of some ceremonies that makes you come to temple. Right? So we don't condemn them. But we know that they are not necessary for our enlightenment. They are hindrance to our enlightenment, hindrance to our development of mind. You see. Many of you or most if not all of you have gone up to that state where you have that ability to reduce, and you don't have that superstitious views anymore, isn't it? But still, some of your parents and grandparents still have those kinds of views in their mind. When they talk about religion, when they talk about Buddhism, they talk about those activities in their mind. Right? You must know through your study of Dhamma that the real message of the Buddha is this: practice. The practice of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, or Dana, Sila, Bhavana, you see, is this path, how to purify the mind, how to develop the mind, and how to release the mind. That's all. That is all. You see, that is the realization of it. So try, make a firm determination at least to get into the path and friction, so that reduce. That you will no longer, once you are able to get into the path and friction of at least the first stage, there will be no more. You don't have to be afraid. You can die in great confidence, because you know you are not going to be born in a woeful state, in a miserable state, right? You will be born in a good state of existence. And but consider carefully also where to be born. Any part of the world that you like. Many of the parts of the world that I have traveled and seen, you see. Because in Australia, we meet people from various parts of the world. And they all say those parts of the world they come from are not satisfactory. That is why they move here. When we ask those Australians, real native Australians, they also say they don't like this country, they want to go somewhere else. There is no country that is satisfactory to be born in. Right? That's why some people come back. You see. No country in this world, there's no place in this world that is totally satisfactory. That is dukkha. Face it. Understand what dukkha is. The realities of dukkha. You can get out of it. And if you want to get out of dukkha, all you have to do is to reduce your craving. Control your craving. Attachment. How to control it? First you must know that your craving, your attachment is nothing but a habitual tendency of your mind. You go back and see. The moment you go back, you have the desire to turn on the television, you just turn on. What are you doing? You're feeding your craving. There's a desire to turn on television, you just turn on. You try and see. When the thought comes, I want to see television, then you say, no. And see what happens to your mind. Your mind will tell you. Your mind, the more intelligent you are, the cleverer you are, this mind will tell you, just a little while. Then you turn. Watch, observe. If you're still clever, you say, no, I will not. Then the mind will fight back some things, nothing to do, and let's go and eat something. Watch that also, that's craving. No, you say no. Then when you do that, you are really practicing the Dhamma. You are really confronting this craving. Don't allow these things, you say. That's how you think when we practice. When we sit down, when we practice sitting down, when it is painful, we feel like, getting up. We say, no, sit. Painful. Right? And when we walk, after we walk, we feel tired, a little bit tired, we want to sit down, we say, no. This is how you challenge your mind. That's how your mind becomes stronger and stronger, stronger and stronger. That is why you must come into a state of, make your life a little bit hard. Not so, with all the comforts that you have, everything you want you get. Then you come next time to temple, right? And you just eat whatever you are given, right? When we have a function, you all line up with a plate, right? And then watch your mind. I see when people give you a little bit, another one you see a lot, you know, oh, and then you want to take something, you just, no. You just be contented with this. Develop your contentment. When you develop your contentment, this is where you start to reduce your craving tendencies. But the real craving tendencies you only overcome when you control your thoughts. When you are able to have mastery over your thoughts. That don't allow your mind to think and rethink about these things. So practice this. Whatever has happened in the past, don't think over it. Don't go and, you know, you that person, you know, what he did to me last year, last month, forget about it. Remind one another enough. I have heard that umpteen times to stop that. Live in the present. Where is he now? What is he doing now? He is not disturbing you anymore. Okay, be happy. Right? He has done it in the past. That's finished. He's no longer the same person already. Right? Live in the present. In other words, try to live in the present. And stop thinking about the future. What the future is going to happen, you know, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, and what's going to happen to my children, what's going to happen to these things. Live in the present. You make plans. It does not mean to say, some people say, a few days ago when I talked about this, they says, our past, we must think of our past. Our past is a foundation. Our past, yes, the past is the foundation. But you must do your work in the present. You don't live in the past. Oh, you see. Still you must work in the present. You must live in the present. Right? You think of the future. Right? You must make plans. You must know what you're going to do tomorrow, or day after. But after you make the plan, you drop it off and live in the present. Then only you reach the goal. If you think, you know, tomorrow I'll do that, tomorrow I'll do that, tomorrow I'll do that. Now I'll go and sleep, tomorrow I'll do that. Tomorrow come, you think, I'll do that tomorrow. You don't do anything. You see? Live in the present. It is this present. That's where you must have an aim, you must have an aspiration in life. When you make an aim and aspiration, by coming, listening to Dhamma, when you get the inspiration, you make an aim that your aim, it will lead you to develop wisdom, insight, and be able you to overcome suffering. Then, this is the direction, the course that you take. And all, whatever you have learned, whatever you have done, your mind will set yourself in this course, in this direction. That's the aspiration that you have. Okay, right. I have told you a little bit about, it is a little bit deep for some of you, but at least you hear there are these different factors of enlightenment which leads you to the complete cessation of suffering. And if there is any questions, do you have any questions? Otherwise you can question me later. We'll have just a few minutes of sitting quietly that you can share the merits and make your aspirations. Just a few moments to keep your body upright. Take a few deep breaths. As you breathe in and out, you will free your mind. Whatever thoughts, whatever events have taken place during the day, just free your mind. Whatever plans you have for tomorrow, for the future, also free your mind from these plans and just keep your mind in the present. You can do this by focusing your attention just above your upper lip and watch the breath as you breathe in and out. As if you breathe in and out through that point above your upper lip. Any thoughts, any distraction that comes to your mind, return your attention to your breath. Breathe in, breathe out naturally, normally. sustain your attention, maintain your attention at that point above your upper lip, just for a few moments.